Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've recorded meetings and conventions here in Southern California since 1998. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994, and I got sober in a small town called Santa Maria. I moved to Los Angeles when I had 5 years sober and started recording meetings shortly after I got here. In 2013, I started recording conventions. So please enjoy the channel. Please like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Just click right down there. Thank you.
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. All right. Now our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in a warm welcome for Cubby S. from West Hollywood.
Hi, I'm Cubby Selby, alcoholic. It's nice to be back at this meeting. I've always enjoyed speaking here. A nice bunch of people. Yeah, a lot of people, too. I didn't know they had that many drunks down here. Must be the salt air. Anyway, I am delighted to be here, and I'm an alcoholic that never drank in high school, and I never drank in college. I'm an alcoholic that never went to high school, and I never went to college. But I learned how to drink the way we all do. You know, you pour it down, scream, holler, tears come to your eyes. You throw up, you get locked up, you get beat up, and do the same damn thing for the next 30 years. It's called fun. Yeah. Oh, I wonder what kind of dictionary. You know, Ambrose Bierce wrote the Devil's Dictionary. Maybe we should write the Drunkard's Dictionary, man. The way we distort things. Anyway, I want to say that I love alcohol. I think alcohol is truly a gift of the gods. And for me, it's not a coincidence that the word spirit means God and it means booze. Because if you're anything like me, drinking was a spiritual experience. God, obviously, alcohol had to do a whole lot for me in order for me to be willing to let it do so much to me, and ultimately it destroyed everything of value in my life. The only reason I was willing to go along with that was because of what it did for me. It's a wondrous thing, because I never felt a part of anything in my life. I've always been alienated. I've always been a fractured and decimated human being. And I was always consumed by my feelings, and I never had any idea what I was feeling. So I went through life like a scream, looking for a mouth. I was really an intense young man. When I was a kid, I would black out before the first drink on a couple of occasions. I just, really intense. And it wasn't until I got sober that I started to understand what it was I was feeling as a kid. Because I didn't know at the time that I felt overwhelmed with shame and guilt and inadequacy. And that underneath everything was an all-consuming terror. And I knew there was something wrong with me because I should not feel the way I felt. And I was convinced that there was something so morally defective about me, I didn't have the right to live. And that I was incapable of making it in this world. But when I take a drink, oh, God, and the angels sing. Oh, man, I take a drink and the grand illusion takes over. All those things just fall away. And one of the greatest things, I think, that alcohol did for me was that it made me a holy man. I've come to believe that the most devastating thing a human being can experience is to feel separated from themselves. And when you have had that feeling your entire life and know no other feeling, it's impossible to realize that is what you're experiencing. It's only when you start to feel whole that you realize that you felt separation. And alcohol made me a holy man. I became one whole, solid, unified being. And I had a sense of peace that I never knew existed. It's a wondrous, wondrous thing. And what else is every human being on the face of this earth all caught up in the human dilemma? What is it we all need to do? Unify ourselves so we can get free of the lie of separation. Now, some people go in the mountains and caves and live there for 50 years. I take a drink and shine them on, man. You know? And then some clown says, hey, man, you shouldn't drink. Get out of here. I'm willing to admit my drinking can be a problem for you. Because I black out and get homicidal, and it's true, I might take a drink and I might kill you. But that's the chance I got to take. I mean, believe me, I'm willing to take that chance. Easy come, easy go. One less of you creeps. Hey, that's going to bother me. Come on. Too many yahoos around here anyway. So I just can't possibly accept that I'm powerless over alcohol because it's the answer to every problem I ever perceived. Now, I lost my first job due to drinking at the age of 15. My drinking never got any better, but I still remember that sense of peace and unity. That is indelibly etched in every cell of my brain. And it permeates whatever constitutes my memory. So I just cannot stop drinking. I left home at 15. I went to sea. I was a merchant seaman. And by the time I was 18, they said I couldn't live more than two months. I had TB. And I literally had no lungs left. I just had absolutely no lungs. Yet I still managed to jump off the ship and run to a wine shop to get 4 or 5 bottles of wine. Never seeing that indicated I had an abnormal relationship with alcohol. Today I realize a non-alcoholic wouldn't conceive of running a quarter of a mile without any lungs for 4 or 5 bottles of wine, you know? But what do they know, man? They don't understand singleness of purpose the way I do. I'm not going to dissipate my energy with all that nonsense. I go to the source. Everybody has what they believe is their source, and I had mine. And it worked for a while. So I couldn't see where I was powerless over alcohol. It was the answer. And I couldn't accept my life had become unmanageable, because if I did, I'd have to look at why. Yet by the time I was 22 years old, I had spent more than 3 years in bed. I had 10 ribs cut out, 1 lung collapsed, a piece of the other one cut out. And they used an experimental drug to keep me alive. And it impaired my vision and my hearing. My inner ear was almost totally destroyed. And I couldn't walk properly, and I'd stagger and fall down in the dark. All my muscles were petrified from this drug, and it literally fried my brain. I had some additional brain damage from that stuff, too. And then things started to get bad. That's a guarantee we have as drunks, man. No matter how bad things are, drinking eventually will make them worse. That's a flat-out guarantee. But I had to drink, and I had to protect my right to drink. So my innermost self has always known I can't drink. So in order to keep that information away from my awareness, I had to develop a belief system of lies. I had to teach myself what is true is false and what is false is true. The basic lie being that alcohol is the answer, not the problem. And one of the things I did to protect my right to drink was use heroin. And I went on a heroin sobriety maintenance program. And that proved conclusively to me that I am not an alcoholic. You can't possibly be an alcoholic when you're shooting $100 a day worth of stuff and only getting drunk once or twice a month or whenever necessary. And I pursued this program for about 6 years, and it got a little habitual and a little expensive. Now, the second step, of course, implies that we're nuts. And what I did was I left New York and I moved to Hollywood to get away from drugs. But you can tell I'm sincere. You know, you can tell that by my pretty blue eyes. I'm so sincere that it worked. I got busted and they strapped me down in solitary and I kicked my habit. Definitely the no-frills approach. You know, one of those special white cells with a blue stripe. Oh, man, was I uncomfortable. I tell you, I wasn't laughing. I knew I was going to die. I knew that for sure. And then 3 days later, when I went for my prelim, I was afraid I wasn't going to die. Jesus. After a week, they asked me if I wanted to come out, and I said no. I can't tell you how safe I felt in that cell. You know, they're small, they're cozy, there's a sense of warmth, you know. And by then I had a vested interest in this thing. I felt so safe in there because by this point in my life, I knew that I was doing me in. I didn't know how. I certainly didn't associate any of my troubles with drinking. But somehow I knew I was doing me in. And I knew I couldn't do anything to me locked in that cell. So I stayed in there a month. They kicked me out and put me with population for a month. And then somebody bailed me out and put me in a hospital for a month. And then suddenly I was back out on the streets in the same world I've never understood. The same world that has always intimidated me. Only this time I hadn't had a drink for 90 days. And I could no longer really believe in the belligerence and hostility that I always generated to hide my fear from you and from me. And I was so terrified I couldn't go through an intersection. The only thing that got me through an intersection was going for a drink. That was the only motivation that could get me across that street. That went on for 15 months. And the woman I was living with brought another woman home with 3 children because they had no place to live, so we moved them in. And this guy used to come and visit this woman. And one Friday night he came and he visited with me. Now, as I say, I'm a blackout drinker, so I don't remember more than a total perhaps of 30 seconds from the entire night. And I think he was there almost all night. I remember him coming into the room and sitting down. And the next thing I remember is he got up and he walked over to me and he dropped a book in my lap and he said, "I'm tired. You read to me." So I assume he had been reading to me, but I have no direct memory of that. And I remember putting the book on the table, opening it up, and that's the last thing I remember. But it turned out that I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I have no idea how much of the book I read, but evidently I read enough to identify with the problem and to recognize the answer, because he took me to a meeting the following night, and I've been sober ever since. And that was the 29th of March, 1969. And a couple of things happened in the next, 12 hours or so that forced me to believe that miracles are possible without my consent. And I am truly delighted to know that. Because if I had the consent to the miracle of sobriety, I would never experience it. However, I've also come to believe that at some point I must make a decision to cooperate with that miracle and to take the necessary actions, or I will not experience that miracle for the rest of my life. And I truly do. I mean, I really don't care much for my life. As far as I'm concerned, you can take this physical world and whatever. But I sure am delighted with sobriety. God, I just love being sober, and I truly want to die sober. I was a few years ago, I was in a rather oppressive suicidal depression for about 2 years. And I didn't want to blow my sobriety. I mean, I didn't want to off myself with goofballs or something. So what I was thinking of doing was shooting up battery acid, giving myself a hot shot. But that kind of made me cringe. Because I think, geez, you know, you're going to have 3 or 4 seconds of intense discomfort before you go. But this is the thing about that. Or jumping off a roof. And suppose you don't die, man. Suppose you just destroy your central nervous system. You can't move. You're just in bed with diapers strapped down. And you're like that for 20 or 30 years. And the only thing you can do is lie there and think. Yeah, huh? That'll grow hair on your head, man, I'll tell you. Holy Christ. Anyway, I'm still here. But I bought a special kind of battery for my car. Shouldn't lie from the podium. I got my fingers crossed. Anyway, this guy took me to a meeting, and I was rendered sober. The first step took me. I mean, the obsession to drink was removed. And I hated everything about this meeting. Oh, man, it was grotesque. It was hideous. And yet, when he took me home, I heard myself say, "Can I go to another meeting?" And when I said that, I took the second step. Now, I've come to realize that I did not say that. That is the Cubby that I was aware of at that moment. I didn't know there was more to Cubby than just this body and the brain and what I thought was my mind. As a matter of fact, I was years in sobriety before I had any hint of what Cubby's mind is. I thought that those thoughts that went through my head were my mind, my thoughts. I didn't know there was something else. Anyway, it was this other being, this inner being, whatever you choose to call it, that spoke those words through me. Because obviously, this inner being recognized that that group of people, no matter how I chose to judge them, there was a power in that meeting that was keeping these people sober. Now, the next morning, I started my day in the usual way. I got up and I started a fight with this woman I was living with in order to justify storming out of the house and getting drunk. And that's exactly what I did, and I stormed out of the house, and I was down in the corner waiting for the light to change, and that same voice that's been screaming at me all my life was there that morning, and it was just as vicious and rotten. Only this time, on the basis of one AA meeting, 2 words got changed. And it was screaming at me, "I'll show her. I won't drink. I'll stay sober." And my body turned around and went back. I beg your pardon. Story of my sex life there. You're lucky I'm not a stand-up, man. I mean, whoa, gotta get lost. Anyway. So as I said, the second step took me. I was restored to sanity. Now, I've been mad as a hatter most of my sobriety, but I've been totally and absolutely sane with respect to alcohol. And how I define sanity in the second step is simply, I could no longer believe the lies necessary to believe in order to justify taking the first drink. I could no longer believe that drinking would improve the quality of my life in any way. That's my definition of sanity. Now, I don't limit the sanity available to just that, but it seems to me obvious if you're alcoholic, without that foundation of sanity, nothing else is possible. No other forms of sanity are possible. But with that foundation, all other forms of sanity are possible. So the second step took me, and I went back to the house, and I didn't drink. It's not that I tried not to. I just did not drink. And so at the end of 30 days, I was stark raving sober. As we all know, there is only one thing worse than drinking. That's not drinking. That's precisely why we are here. God. Now, you take away the most important thing in someone's life, you must replace it with something of value, because nature cannot and will not accept a vacuum. Alcohol had become the most important thing in my life. When you take alcohol out of my life, I'm left with that dark, black, cancerous sense of separation that I started with. And if it's not replaced with something of value, I must drink. I have absolutely no choice in the matter. I must drink. I am powerless over alcohol, and alcohol is the only point of reference I have for healing that sense of separation within me. And I've come to believe that Alcoholics Anonymous is that something of value that fills that hole and fulfills every need I shall ever have for the rest of my life. Now, I've come to believe that life is extraordinarily simple. So simple that I can't see it. Seems to me that it's the simple and obvious that's invisible to me. But I've come to believe that life is simply a series of decisions, actions, and results. Now, I can't prove this other than that's what Alcoholics Anonymous says as I understand it. The only thing I know about anything is what I've learned from my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. I certainly didn't learn in school. I never went to school. Well, I did go to the 9th grade. I mean, I'm not a total dummy. But I look at this program of Alcoholics Anonymous and I examine my experience with it, and that's what it seems to me. Decisions, actions, results. Just that simple. I've also come to believe that somehow I decided to be unaware of my decisions. Therefore, everything that happens to me is not my fault. I didn't do it. I'm not responsible. Listen, I even had a shrink tell me once I'm unlucky. I got 5 years drinking out of that, man. I tell you, that's a wonderful thing. You see? But you have to believe the lie yourself. Otherwise, how can you create that grand illusion? So, I don't see where somewhere I made a decision based on self that got me wherever it got me at any particular moment in my life. I don't see that. I can't see that from the years and years in the hospital, the funny farms, the jails, and just the agony of walking the streets. I cannot see that, but through this program, Alcoholics Anonymous, I can see that. Now, I believe that after 30 days, that inner self made a decision that we should stay sober and got me to take the necessary action, which was going to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and asking for help. And the help was instantly and automatically there. And again, it's simple and obvious. The reason that the help is instantly and automatically there is that the answer is in the asking. You cannot have a problem without already having the answer. It is a spiritual impossibility to have a problem without having the answer. However, I still have this belief system of lies that I developed and nurtured to protect my right to drink. So I am unaware of already having what it is I am so desperately looking for. I cannot conceive of looking for something unless I already have it. I can't conceive of praying for something unless I already have it. And the more I pray for it, the more I convince myself I don't have it. So go ahead, keep praying for something. You know, it'll get you in the end. However, when I come up to you and say, help me, tell me what to do, I've given up. And that information can transcend that belief system of lies. And it'll always come from within me. There will never, an answer in my life for me will never come from outside of me. Only from within me. As a matter of fact, I believe with all my being that nothing exists outside of Cubby for Cubby other than an opportunity for Cubby to give away what he has. It's the only thing that exists outside of me. So I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I asked for help, and the help was there. Excuse me. And then when you shared with me what you did at that point in your sobriety, made it possible for me to recognize the answer in whatever way I need to stay sober for the next 24 hours. So after 30 days, I asked for help, and I was given a gift of recovery. I was given the gift of sobriety that first night. 30 days later, I got the gift of recovery. Now I'm a sticky wicket because I'm face-to-face with that third step and that three-letter word. And the kindest thing I ever said about God is that it's dog spelled backwards. After my last operation, I was in a coma for 4 days. At some point in that period, I opened my eyes as the chaplain walked in the room, and I stayed conscious long enough, just maybe 2 or 3 seconds, long enough to shake my head no and watch him leave, because I knew he was there to give me the hocus pocus, and I didn't have anything to do with it. I was determined that if I died, I was going to die giving God the finger, and if there was such a thing called God, I couldn't wait to die so I could meet it, spit in its face, and tell it what I thought of it. I've been told that's an attitude. And the amusing part about this is, see, I was still a teenager at this time. So it's not that years of drinking warped my attitude. It's like drinking made it possible for me to live with this sick attitude, you know. And AA is the only place I know where you can bring an attitude like mine and have it turned into a love affair, not by going to church, not by taking religious instructions or studying theology or dogma or metaphysics or psychology, but by not taking one drink one day at a time and hanging out with a bunch of sober drunks. And that's exactly what happened to me. So everyone is saying, you have to pray, and I don't know what the hell to do about this. So I copied the third step prayer and the St. Francis prayer. I'd tack them on the wall, and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd read them, and at night I'd read them and go to bed. Then it seemed like everyone was saying you have to kneel and pray, and so I thought I'd try it. 20 and 30 times a day I'd try and kneel and pray, and I couldn't do it. My knees wouldn't bend. And when I was sober 4 months, I took my fifth step. When I finished, my sponsors showed me the pages in the book to tell you what to do for 6 and 7. I went home and I did as the book suggests. And when I had taken the sixth step, I was made aware of it. And I've come to think that the essence of the sixth step is simply that when there's no longer a payoff in the defect, I'm willing to let it go. So I don't hold on to pain. What I hold on to, though, is the concept of pleasure. It seems to me I've spent my life trying desperately to avoid pain by pursuing pleasure and ending up miserable. And I just can't seem to stop doing that. I really think I can separate pleasure from pain, and they're one and the same thing. There may be a different aspect at different times, a different perception, but it's one and the same thing. I don't hold on to the pain of resentment, but I will hold on to the pleasure of judgment, thinking I can, after the meeting, go home all alone, and you know what goes on in our cute little heads and these shrunken pumpkin minds. And then, when I'm knotted up with this resentment, I can just get on my knees and hocus pocus God. You know, oh, I can't take the pain. Oh, get out of here, schmuck, don't bother. It never occurs to me that the simplest way to avoid the pain is to give up the pleasure, for Christ's sake. But who wants to give up that? It's like, I'm sure nobody here wants to go home to that God of punishment. But I'll bet you just about everybody here is holding on to a God of rewards, thinking you can do that and get rid of a God of punishment. Lots of luck, Charlie. Remember, no good deed goes unpunished. But if I really want to give up that whole concept of punishment, then I must be willing to give up the concept of rewards and accept this thing as is. As far as I can tell, whatever you want to call this thing, God, life, whatever, it's just, it's so simple put out there. Alcoholics Anonymous, as outlined in the book, and as the principles are practiced, is totally impersonal. We may judge each other, however, we too are impersonal. We don't give a rat's ass where you've been, or what color you are, or if you walk on the top of your head. If you're a drunk and you want to stay away from a drink for 24 hours, for God's sake, get your smelly ass in here. We'll clean you up. You know? Totally impersonal. I mean, we even allow people in here. You know? And you know how we hated people. So anyway, taking the 6th step, I was made aware of, and I think it was on my knees taking the 7th step, and that day I was given the gift of prayer. And I've come to believe the gift of prayer is the most precious thing that we're given by whatever this power is that created us. Because with prayer, it all starts to take on a living reality. And I know from my experience as the prayer that there's nothing to get. There is only everything to give. And I believe AA is the perfect place for me to give everything away. I also know that it's only while I'm in the process of giving it away that I become aware of having it in the first place. Until I'm in that process, I am absolutely convinced I don't have it, I can't do it. However, if I am forced, thanks, sweetheart, I really appreciate it. If I am forced to do it, I find I can, no matter what it is, I can do it. I will always be able to meet the responsibilities of life when I just say yes to life, say yes to Alcoholics Anonymous. I also know from my experience as the prayer that I don't pray to God. There's nothing to pray to, but I pray from God. It's all totally an inside job. And the prayer that heals the sick minds and mends the broken hearts that we all bring to Alcoholics Anonymous is the song of love we sing to this thing called God. I believe that song is heard in every heart throughout the world and is heard throughout the entire universe. And with steps 10 and 11, we can not only sit and hear that prayer, but experience the simple truth that in all of the universe, there is only one song, and we are that song. Each and every note just as important as the other. We are that song. With the 9th step, I was given a gift of love. When I was sober 6 months, I became aware of the fact that I'd fallen in love with this thing called God. Now, I had been given up for dead 3 or 4 times in a hospital, many times in the street. And the only thing that kept me alive was what I thought was my hatred for God. It literally animated me. In 6 months with you, it turned into a love affair. And I didn't understand it, but then I read AA Comes of Age. In the back of the book, they quote an old Spanish philosopher that explained this thing. It's a little line that says, those who deny God deny him because of their despair at not finding him. First time I read that, I understood my entire life. I understood absolutely everything. I understood that I had believed that there was something missing inside of me, and I'd spent a lifetime trying to find this thing, and I wanted this more than life itself. Yet I couldn't find it, so I had to believe that I couldn't have it. And then with you, I found out that this thing I so desperately searched all over the world for, this thing that I wanted more than life itself and believed I could not have, it turns out it's the only thing I can never be without. But it's only by uncovering the lies of my belief system, discarding those lies, that I discover that truth. Process of Alcoholics Anonymous. So with the 9th step, I was given the gift of love, and an old axiom says, the holiest ground in the world is where an ancient hatred has been turned into a current love. So because of what had happened for me in Alcoholics Anonymous, wherever I am standing on the holiest ground in the world. And I believe it is impossible to take the first 9 steps without standing on the holiest ground in the world. It may take you as long as it took me to become aware of it, but if you make those decisions and you take the necessary actions, you will have that inevitable and predictable result. You will stand on the holiest ground in the world. With the 12th step, we have this great guarantee, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. The only thing we're working for is spiritual awakening. And among other things, the word spirit simply means essence. The Latin root is spiritus. It means breath. See, this is not an involved and complicated theological or dogmatic concept. We are simply dealing with the essence of life, the breath of life. And the book tells us precisely where we find this great reality, deep within ourselves. Now, if the great reality is deep within me, what in the hell can be outside of me? Nothing real can be outside of Cubby. Nothing real. And yet I destroy myself over an illusion. Isn't that a gasser? Oh, man. Jesus Christ. The great reality is within me, then it can only be illusion outside of me. And this is a case, and see, the 12th step doesn't say we had a spiritual awakening as a reward for being good. It says as a result. As far as I can tell, there's decisions, actions, results. Now, I must have thought, so with this 12th step, I have my own personal relationship with whatever this power is that created me. Now, this is not somebody else's concept of God. This is not some institution's concept of God. And this is not my concept of God. I have absolutely no concept of this thing. What this is a power of infinite and unconditional love that has revealed itself to me from within me as a direct result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And wherever I am, all of this power is. I can never have less than everything there is. But the very nature of obsession is to want more than there is. So an obsession can never be satisfied, right? Now, I must have thought that you have a spiritual awakening and you stop being human or something. I don't know. All I know is that I've had more trouble in sobriety than I had drinking. I battled my demons. I lost everything. And after 15 years, my wife had to leave because she couldn't live with such a depressed person, I guess is the kindest thing I can call myself. I was just a madman, a maniac. And I hadn't worked in years, and I lost my health, my sanity, and everything else. Anyway, we were back in Massachusetts at the time. Our son, who was 12, elected to stay with me. And we got back here, Billy and I, because we had no money, and we stayed with a friend. I got on welfare, and I got a little 2-room apartment for Bill and me. When we moved in there, we had 2 suitcases each. He had an old army cot somebody gave him to sleep on, and I had a piece of foam rubber to sleep on. And that was all the stuff we had. That was the extent of everything. And I was 14 years sober. I was suddenly a single parent on welfare. And to this day, I don't know how I survived those years. I'd get Bill up in the morning, feed him. We'd pray, we'd meditate. He'd go to school. I'd sit there and cry. I just had no way of dealing with my life. But I guess the only thing maybe that helped is I had created a habit pattern. I didn't drink. I went to meetings. I helped drunks. And then I experienced the fellowship in a way I never had, because you literally fed us, you clothed us, our pots and pans, chair, everything came from the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that Christmas, I didn't know what to do for Bill. It seemed such a shame that he wouldn't have Christmas because of my disease. So what we ended up doing was going to Skid Row. And we served food to the people down there. It was one of the most glorious days of my life. Because he was so happy, making sure the kids got extra pie and extra milk, that he lit up all of Skid Row. And I felt so honored to be a part of such a wondrous human being as Bill. And then each Christmas we did that while we were together. And then my wife called and said she was in love with somebody else. And by that time, I was so empty inside I couldn't even cry. And I was praying for my wife one morning because when we separated, we loved each other unconditionally. It was just that her sobriety and her life were threatened by my illness, and I accepted.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And I was praying for her this morning, and a wondrous thing happened. I heard myself thanking God that she had somebody else to love, that she had someone to share her life with, to share her body with, to share her program with, and to share her God with. Now, I know I'm not capable of sitting down and formulating such a prayer, but I believe I do not have to. All I have to do is make the decision to be loving and to take the appropriate action, which in this case was to pray. And this is what I believe happened. With all of my being, I believe this, that your love for me wrote that prayer. And you not only wrote that prayer, but you put the words in my heart so that when my heart broke, it broke open. And I was able to speak those words and have the honor and privilege of experiencing the result of that prayer. See, one drunk talking to another is not just sitting and exchanging words. We have something beyond that, something transcendental. We have a communication here of the heart. So when I got here like everybody else, insulated and isolated in the eye of alcoholism. And I get here, and the very first word of the program is we. We admit it. We not only admit each other to these rooms, but we admit each other to our hearts. And instantly the I of my disease starts to become a part of the we of Alcoholics Anonymous. And as I continue to practice these principles, we experience the one, the oneness of all life, from I to we to one. When I got here, you saw beyond the crazed, drunken beast that I believed I was. Beyond that, you saw a sober being, and within that sober being, you saw light, and you saw love. And you held that image of me in your mind as you nurtured me, you loved me, and most importantly of all, you allowed me to make every mistake I must make in order to learn what I need to learn to stay sober for the next 24 hours. The most important thing in my life is I get drunk, we stay sober. That's as profound as my life gets. And more as I continue to come back to you, I am becoming that image that you have of me, as you are becoming the image that I have of you. And together we are becoming the vision that God has of us. Thank you very much.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here. remote control is connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.